animals. He could have picked a giraffe. Like, I am Southern Belle from the city, and you're watching another hashtag Southern Belle Speaks Sunday. So hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Again, I'm Southern Belle from the city. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, this is something that I do every week. I give an inspirational message, a nice little talk, a nice little chit chat. It may be on a public service announcement, or something that's going on in the world, a current event or what have you. I do have my lapel mic on so that you guys can hear me better. You probably will hear the fan in the background, but I'm probably going to put some music to this, so it shouldn't be that distracting. Anyways, yeah, so definitely thank you so much for watching. If you're new and if you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. If you're not a Belle, then click the notification bell and subscribe so that you can become a Belle. I call you guys my Belles and Boys because I am the Southern Belle, so you're Belles and Boys. But yeah, so today we are talking about a book that I'm reading. Last week we talked about a different book that I'm reading. We talked about the Prayers for Freedom from Worry and Anxiety. So last week we talked about that, and I said that I would come back and talk more about it as I read into it. But I've been a little unfocused lately. Usually I'll finish a book and then start another one, but lately I've started this book and then put it down and started reading something else, and then I'm listening to the book that I'm reading on Audible. I have an audiobooks account. I listen to the books on there. So I do like books. I like to read. I also like to listen to books, and lately I've just been bouncing around from different books. What I want to talk about today is an Audible, so I can't show you, but I can put the link to the audiobook in the description box. You can buy it paperback, but a friend of mine recommended it to me, and I didn't want to wait, so I bought it on Audible so I could listen to it that day. But yeah, so I've been listening to it. It's by Dr. Dharius. I really like him. I'm familiar with him. If you're not, he's a pastor. He posts videos on YouTube a lot, and yeah, he's awesome. So he wrote this book called Relational Intelligence, your relational IQ, which is not what you would think. It's not strictly about relationships between man and woman or whatever, but it's about the relationships that we make with people outside of that realm as well as inside of that realm. But it's about your relationships with your family. It's about your relationships with your peers, your co-workers, your friends, acquaintances, associates. A lot of times we don't separate those boundaries. We don't put people in the right spots, and that's why things happen. It's not that we have to cut those people off, but we have to put them in the right spot where they belong in our life. And so that's something that I'm still learning, myself. That's something that I'm still growing with, that God's still working with me on. But I pulled some gems out of this book the other day. I was listening to it, and I had to rewind some parts and write them down. I was like, I need to tell my channel about this. So yeah, so I really like the book just for the fact that a lot of us don't learn how to separate those separate boundaries, and boundaries get crossed. Your business relationships stay business. So he gave some examples of things that we talk to people about in the business aspect that should stay in the aspect of a friend. And then we're upset when that person doesn't maintain the trust barrier because it wasn't built, because it wasn't a friendship. So yeah, but the gems that I pulled out today, that I want to talk about today anyway, is that on the aspect of us choosing who we're to be with or to have in our lives. And so one thing that he said is that it's hard to have a good relationship with a bad choice. A lot of times, as Christians especially, we say, oh, God placed this person in my life, or, I learned from something from this relationship, but, I guess God wanted me to learn this lesson. And oftentimes we chose that person, and now we're kind of reneging on that choice. So we want to say God placed them in our lives for a lesson. That's not always the case. Sometimes it is the case, but most of the time we didn't consult God on the way in, and we didn't like the outcome of that blind choice, and now we want to, kind of back out and say, God gave me that for a lesson. And I can't say that that's something that I did, because I know that I didn't consult God on a lot of my relationship and friendship choices. Things I'm still paying for today, but we live and we learn. But when it was time for me to walk away, I walked away because I knew that, God hadn't invited me into that relationship, hadn't put that person in my life, which brings me to my next point, is that he said, in that bad place, no, we make bad choices when we're in bad places, which I was like, that's a gem. But in that bad place, we choose someone suitable for the bad place, not where we will eventually be. So oftentimes, when we're in a dark place, when we're not right with ourselves, when we don't have a sense of purpose, when we are in a gray area in our lives, we choose people who are suitable for that bad place, whether it's friendships who are in the same boat as us, or relationships who, feed the person that's broken in that state. You know what I mean? And I can speak from experience on my end that I always would choose relationships when I felt lonely and I felt unloved and I felt, an array of things that I was dealing with within myself. And that's the wrong time to be in a relationship, when you can't, emotionally stand on your own and you're seeking another person to fill a void that's missing within yourself. So to speak from experience for that example, I would necessarily choose from that bad place a person that was suitable for that bad place. However, striving towards wholeness and striving towards a person that's, well-rounded in mind, body, and spirit, that choice doesn't sit right with you anymore, He also said that they are to help us out of that season. And which is why we make this bad choice, because we choose a person suitable for that bad place, because we're trying to find a way out of it. Instead of seeking God, we find a person to help us out of the season. And sometimes they do. But that's when we need to learn to, take it for what it is. But a lot of times when we get out of that season, we still try to hold on to that person that we picked when we were in that season. And this quote, this is a direct quote. I was paraphrasing everything else. Now that we got some sense, now that we know who we are, now that we're not suffering from rejection, brokenness, low self-esteem, emptiness, and insecurity, relationships may need to change. I replayed that, baby. I replayed that about 3 times, because just the way that, he put this together, it's just, this is why I like Dr. Daniels. Come out of all of that, it's time to reevaluate, because everyone in your life probably was there when you were in that bad place. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. Oftentimes, Christians argue that, everybody that came in their life, God placed them there. And they use Adam and Eve as an example. And, they say, God made Adam directly for Eve. So, God made somebody. Yes, God made somebody for you. That doesn't mean that you would choose to be with that person. That doesn't mean that the people that you have chosen with, God made for you. For example, yes, God made Adam, then he made Eve from Adam. He made her for Adam. But ultimately, one, she was the only other person on the earth at the time. So slim pickings there. But 2, God kind of helped him along the way by making her perfect for him and exactly what he needed. However, this is the first time that Adam is experiencing humanity. Mind you, he's been with all these animals. He could have picked a giraffe. Like, if we're keeping it 100 here, Adam could have picked a giraffe and said, I don't want her. You know what I mean? Because there's no society to judge you. This is before they bit the apple, so they weren't knowing of things of right and wrong here. There's no, court of law or, societal normalcy yet. It's just Adam, God, and the animals. You know what I mean? So therefore, Adam could have chose wrong. He could have chosen an animal and said he didn't like Eve. You know what I mean? But hey, so ultimately he had a choice. He chose right, which again, he chose wrong when they both chose to eat from the tree, the tree that they weren't supposed to. So, hey, there are choices. God gave us free will. So therefore, you know what I mean? There probably is a person out there that's suitable for you. But how many people are you going to go through before you choose right? Did you know? But something else that he said that I thought was a gem is that Adam chose right because he was in the right place. And that's the kicker here, is that when we're talking about, choosing people to be around us in our circle, we're choosing from a bad place. Adam was in the right place to choose the right person for him. You know what I mean? If he was in a bad place and he was in a broken state, and he didn't wait, he may have, and we'll never know if he did or not, but he may have gone and chose an animal because he was sick of waiting for God to send him Eve. He may have gone and chosen, any one of the animals that were in cohabitation with him, because he was lonely and he got cold at night. So he chose an animal, and when Eve came along, he was already booed up with the animals, which a lot of times happens. We get tired of waiting for God to send us the right person, so we choose whoever's around, and then when that person comes along, we want to stay loyal and we're already booed up, and then we miss that person. But so, Adam was in the right place. He was at that time, he was in communion with God, and God said, okay, you need a companion, and he chose in the right place. And it's funny that he says the right place, because in the next sentence he says he was in the right place, which was Eden. And Eden is a metaphor for unbroken communion and fellowship with God. And so that is a gem here, because it's like, one, that's really what Eden means. But a lot of times we're choosing in our bad place, and that just gives us allowing us a script to say that when it's the right time to find your person, you should be in your Eden, in your communion and fellowship with God. It is not the right time when you're in a bad place, when you're lonely, and when you may be dependent on someone the way that you should be dependent on God. When you and God are friends, the way that the friendship that God and Adam had before Eve came along was just so deep, and it was so hand in hand. You know what I mean? The Bible speaks of, them having conversation, and, them really leaning on each other. And he was in that garden, you know what I mean? He was in fellowship and deep communion with God. And that's the place that we should be, to choose, people around us. Now, I'm not saying that, you don't choose people to help you out of your situation that might be a good influence on you. But that's when you're choosing, where he breaks down the difference between an acquaintance, a friend, an assignment, a mentor, and when you're the assignment or you're being mentored. So those situations when you're trying to find somebody to get you out of that situation, those are those boundaries that are to be set. But that person can't also be your partner, so we just have to learn to set boundaries, put people in the categories that they belong in, and once they're in that category, draw those lines from what's appropriate and not appropriate. So lines don't get misconstrued. Expectations for the wrong kind of person in your life aren't placed, and we're not choosing from a bad place and choosing people that are suitable for that bad place, but then holding on to them when things, get better. So yeah, tell me guys what you think about that. Check out Dr. Daniel's Relational Intelligence, Relational IQ. It's definitely a gem, and I'm excited to continue reading. I'll let you know the rest of my dissertation on that. If you guys like this series of, what I'm reading, then I can come back and give you some gems from, I'm also reading Pastor Mike Todd's relationship goals, so I can definitely give you some gems from that. And come back next week. I'll catch you guys for another Southern Belle Speaks Sunday.